Hey guys, and welcome back to the PLC Pod. I'm your host Krystal, and today's episode is just me. I want to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while. It's not about treatments, trends, or anything like that. It's about something slightly quieter, I would say. I've been thinking about what we actually mean when we say the word aesthetics, because most of the time we're talking about like visible changes, something you can see, something you can measure, something you can like point to, something that shows up in the mirror. But I'm not sure that's the full picture. So today I want to talk about what we don't count as aesthetics. The invisible stuff that shapes how we look and how we feel long before any physical changes. So today's not about advice, it's not a how-to, it's just something I've been noticing and want to have a bit of a chat about. So let's get straight into it. When we say aesthetics, most of us immediately think of visible changes. We think of smoother skin, more defined features, brighter, tighter, lifted, all of those sort of things. We think in terms of improvements, before and afters. It's very like outcome based, and I think that's because it's easy, like it's tangible. You can say that's different, that's worked, that hasn't worked. Maybe I need a top up of that. And there's nothing wrong with that, it's natural. We're visual creatures. But I think we've narrowed down the definition down to such a small window that we forget everything that feeds into it. Because the way you look isn't just about what you change, it's also about how you're living. And that's where it gets a bit more interesting. Right now, I'd say a huge shift that I've seen is aesthetics has almost become a shorthand for correction. And that's interesting because originally the word aesthetic just meant something relating to beauty or perception. Not fixing, not correcting, just how something is experienced. Somewhere along the way it narrowed. Now it feels like aesthetics only count if there's a visible shift. But the mirror is such a small frame. It doesn't show exhaustion. It doesn't show stress. It doesn't show how fast someone's living. And yet those things completely change how someone looks. Sometimes you'll see someone who hasn't changed anything externally, but they look different. They look lighter, softer. They have like a glow from within. And that shift doesn't come from a visible adjustment. It comes from something else. And I think we overlook that because it doesn't fit neatly into the aesthetic category. There are so many things that influence how someone looks that we just label as life. Sleep is one of the biggest factors I can think of. You can see the difference between someone who's well rested and someone who hasn't slept properly in months. It's not dramatic. Actually, sometimes it is pretty dramatic. Honestly, it's in the eyes, it's in the skin tone, it's in the energy, the glow, everything. Stress is another one I can think of. Chronic stress changes your posture, it changes breathing patterns, facial tension. If you really think about it, it changes how someone carries themselves altogether. Another one, I would say burnout. Burnout just dulls people. It's not just like mentally, it's physical. Like your skin looks different, your expression changes. Even your tone of your voice, like that sometimes shifts. Like we live in such a fast-paced life. We live fast, we scroll fast, we respond fast, we move fast. When someone is constantly in fight or flight mode, it shows. The body holds on to that state. The face ends up reflecting it. The body, the gut. And none of that sits inside what we traditionally call aesthetics. We treat it like a separate category. Like wellness and aesthetics don't go hand in hand. Like lifestyle and mental health, all these factors don't play into what we call aesthetics. Even with a majority of aesthetic treatments, you're given aftercare, lifestyle changes. Just one from the top of my head I can think of is cool sculpting. With cool sculpting fat freezing treatment, yeah, you get the treatment done and it does definitely work. But you're encouraged to do lifestyle changes, exercise, workout, all these stuff to kind of help the treatment come along. Skin treatments. You come in, you have a laser done in your face, but you're given aftercare. You need to make sure you're looking after your skin after that. A good skincare routine, getting enough sleep, hydration. So aesthetics and wellness, they go hand in hand and we just can't ignore that. And don't get me wrong, wellness has almost become an aesthetic too. There's a look to it. It's the matching sets, the aloe, the matcha, morning routines filmed in soft light, journaling, supplements. The list goes on. Even rest has a visual identity now, and sometimes that turns into another form of pressure. You're not just meant to look good, you're meant to be optimizing your well-being in a very specific way. But real wellness, the kind that shifts how someone feels and in return how they look, is usually quiet and still. It's subtle and gradual and happens over time. And a lot of the time you don't notice it until one day you wake up and you just feel different. You start to look different. There's a glow that you never had before. And you start to realize, wow, it was me going to bed on time. It was me setting boundaries for people around me. It was me drinking water, taking supplements, all these stuff that sound very minimal. They add up over time and they really, really show a big change. And none of that sounds exciting. Yeah, I know. It doesn't make good content. It doesn't make dramatic transformations, or so you think. It's slow and it's subtle, which is probably why we don't associate it with aesthetics. Because aesthetics has become about visible movement and change. Wellness is often about stillness, and stillness doesn't photograph well. I think we separate these things because one is easier to measure. You can measure texture, you can measure symmetry in the face, you can measure weight loss, but you can't really measure peace, like that true inner peace that just radiates. You can't quantify the nervous system being regulated. You can't put calm into a side-by-side image and compare it to 3 years ago. And anything that's harder to measure feels less legitimate in a culture like today that values metrics. But that doesn't mean it's less influential. If anything, it might be more. Because when someone is grounded, rested, and regulated, it shows in ways that don't need explanation. So I'm not saying that aesthetics is not important and it doesn't make a big change, because we all know it really, really does. It's so clear. I'm just saying that wellness needs to also be put on that pedestal right next to it. So go ahead and book that treatment. Go ahead and do that surgery if that's something you really want to do. But don't dismiss the power of looking after yourself first. And maybe that's the part of aesthetics we don't talk about enough. Not because it's unimportant, but because it's slower and quieter and just harder to package. But it is really just so important. I don't really have a neat conclusion to wrap up today's episode. It's just something I've been sitting with. The idea that aesthetics might not just be about what we change, but how we're living while we're doing it. How we're living while we're making those changes. Maybe it's not just about the treatments or the mirror or the visible shifts. Maybe there's a bigger picture to it. But anyway, guys, that's enough for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it didn't come across too much as some kind of motivational speech. But there were some really important points that I would love for you to kind of sit with. And if this episode made you think about aesthetics even slightly different, then that's enough. So thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.